Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the testimony of Dr. Dawn Hughes from day 13 and 14 of the Johnny Depp Amber Heard defamation trial? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoy this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll go through a brief background, move to the summary of the testimony, then offer my analysis. In December of 2018, an op-ed written by the actress Amber Heard was published in the Washington Post. Without naming her ex-husband Johnny Depp specifically, she implied that he mistreated her during their marriage. Johnny Depp sued her for defamation, and Amber Heard countersued him. In April of 2022, the trial began in the Fairfax County Courthouse in Virginia. In this update, I'll be focusing on the testimony of Dr. Dawn Hughes. Direct examination was on May 3. Cross-examination and redirect were on May 4. Here's a summary of the testimony. I have paraphrased it and changed the order of some of the items. The testimony starts under direct examination, so Dr. Hughes is being asked questions from Amber Heard's attorney. Dr. Hughes is a doctoral-level psychotherapist with many years of experience. Specifically, she studied psychology and earned a PhD, which is a Doctor of Philosophy. Therefore, she is both a scientist and a practitioner. Dr. Hughes has experience working in a number of areas, including trauma, substance use, anxiety disorders, and intimate partner violence, which I will refer to as IPV. She works in Manhattan and provides a variety of services. For 2.5 days a week, she provides direct psychotherapy to clients. Dr. Hughes talked about how domestic violence affects men and women in romantic relationships. She referred to the woman as the victim and the man as the perpetrator because that's what she determined occurred in this case. The woman in the relationship can't fix the problem no matter what she does. Sometimes out of frustration, the woman will get angry and yell, but this is reactive. Essentially, Dr. Hughes is setting up this idea that Amber could have been violent, but she's not really to blame. Dr. Hughes talked about how men tend to be more severe in their mistreatment, and women are more likely to be victims. Substance use makes a violent partner even worse. They are more likely to be violent under the influence. Dr. Hughes is then questioned specifically about Amber Heard. She met with Amber for a total of 29 hours across 4 meetings in New York City in 2019 and 2021. She suggested that Amber's report of IPV is consistent with research in this field. And Amber demonstrated clear traumatic effects specifically due to the statements made by Johnny Depp's attorney. This is the foundation for Amber's countersuit. Amber saying that she was defamed when Johnny Depp's attorney called her accusations a hoax. Dr. Hughes diagnosed Amber with post-traumatic stress disorder and no other disorder. She disagreed with Dr. Curry, a mental health professional whose testimony I analyzed in an earlier video, who diagnosed Amber with borderline and histrionic personality disorders, and who said that Amber did not have PTSD. According to Dr. Hughes, Amber does not have any personality pathology, so no personality disorders at all. Dr. Hughes used several methods to come up with her diagnosis, including an interview, reading reports from other clinicians, and using a number of psychometric assessments. A few examples: the Personality Assessment Inventory, the Trauma Symptom Inventory 2, the Beck Anxiety Inventory, the Beck Depression Inventory, and the Miller Forensic Assessment Symptoms Test, also known as the MFAST. This is a screening tool for malingering. It is designed to detect if somebody is attempting to fake a mental illness. Dr. Hughes offered more information about the PTSD diagnosis. She not only said that Amber had the disorder, but she claimed that IPV perpetrated by Johnny Depp was etiological, meaning it caused Amber to develop the PTSD symptoms. Dr. Hughes said that both Johnny and Amber were aggressive, but Amber received more aggression. In addition, Johnny Depp was obsessive, controlling, and demanding. Amber scored high in avoidance and had a startle response, both of which are consistent with PTSD, her symptoms were determined to be at a moderate level. Dr. Hughes repeated a number of Amber's claims against Johnny Depp, like she listed all these violent acts that Johnny allegedly perpetrated. She said Johnny's behavior was consistent with coercive control. He controlled Amber's career, was jealous, called actors and directors to check up on her. He told her what she could wear and could not wear. He would enter into drug-fueled rages. And Amber's career was damaged because she was reluctant to take certain roles. Dr. Hughes suggested that psychotherapy notes recorded prior to the lawsuit being filed supported some of Amber's allegations. Like Amber said that Johnny was controlling before she would have any incentive to lie. Dr. Hughes defended and explained Amber's behavior. For example, Amber was mortified by calling Johnny offensive names, like she was upset with herself for doing it. Amber punched Johnny on one occasion to protect her sister. Amber's behavior became worse over time due to Johnny's treatment of her. This led to more anxiety and more anger outbursts. So Johnny caused Amber to be violent. Dr. Hughes declared that Amber was not a perpetrator of IPV. Near the end of direct examination, Dr. Hughes said that when Amber had to refute the hoax allegation, it reactivated the PTSD. During cross-examination and redirect on May 4, nothing much really happened in terms of interesting revelations. A recording was played where Amber admitted striking Johnny Depp first. Dr. Hughes agreed this was not reactive violence. There was some debate about how Dr. Hughes scored different instruments and about her thoughts on gender stereotyping. And Dr. Hughes indicated she never witnessed any IPV in this case. She has no first-hand knowledge, but she believed that Amber's presentation was consistent with what is seen in the research literature. Now moving to my analysis. Here are my thoughts on a few items that stood out to me in the testimony of Dr. Hughes. Item number 1. Some of Dr. Hughes' testimony was based on the idea that in the context of a romantic relationship, it is statistically unlikely that a woman would be as violent or more violent than a man. This was touched on during cross-examination with the gender stereotyping concerns. This is a fairly common defense when a woman is accused of being an offender in a relationship. Her behavior is characterized as reactive, defensive, and retaliatory. She would not have attacked if she was not provoked. Dr. Hughes is correct about the statistics. Men tend to be more violent in relationships and with greater severity. However, there is a danger in saying that a specific action is unlikely based on a general tendency without considering the specific circumstances of the case. For example, globally, the homicide rate is 6 victims per 100,000 people. So, if there was a murder trial, could the defense argue there is a low probability that the victim is dead, or a low probability that the defendant is a killer? After all, most people are not homicide victims, and most people do not commit homicide. If there was no other evidence available in the case of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, I would agree that it's unlikely that Amber would be an offender in the relationship, but there is other evidence available. Which brings me to item number 2. It seems clear that Amber has engaged in violence directed at Johnny Depp. That doesn't appear to be in dispute at this point. On at least one occasion, Amber struck Johnny without provocation. Her behavior was not reactive, it was proactive. Yet, Dr. Hughes determined that Amber is not a perpetrator of IPV. So Amber Heard was physically violent, verbally aggressive, and manipulative, but is somehow not a perpetrator. Johnny Depp has allegedly engaged in the same actions, but he is a perpetrator. He's the one who has a documented history of retreating from arguments. Why can't Johnny Depp's actions be considered reactive, defensive, and retaliatory? What makes him the aggressor? Item number 3. During a few moments under direct examination, Dr. Hughes was more animated, specifically when she was describing all the offensive terms that Johnny Depp used in text messages, emails, and in audio recordings. She even repeated some of the offensive language on the stand. I find it interesting that there was such passion in the retelling of those specific events. Dr. Hughes appeared to be strongly biased in favor of Amber, almost like she was simply trying to manipulate the jury. to play on their emotional reactions to the offensive language. She wanted to remind people how Johnny Depp was a terrible person. Item number 4. A key part of the testimony of Dr. Hughes was the honesty of Amber. Just like we saw with Dr. Curry's testimony, there was a reliance on psychometric instruments to determine truthfulness. As I've talked about before in other videos, mental health professionals of all types, social workers, marriage and family therapists, psychologists, and counselors, all do a good job at psychotherapy, but they do not have some magical superior ability to detect deception. Forensic psychotherapists run into the same problem that law enforcement runs into. Everybody wants to know if a person involved in a legal situation is telling the truth. This has led to pseudoscientific ideas and tactics like polygraphs, microexpressions, repressed memories, and body language analysis. Validity scales on psychometric instruments can be useful in certain circumstances, but they are not good at detecting deception. Item number 5. Dr. Hughes indicated that Amber was treated by 2 psychotherapists. She was with each of them for 2 years. During that time, no personality disorder diagnosis was given. This is a good point. One would think that if Amber really did have personality disorders, her clinicians would have made the diagnosis. It is worth noting, however, that a diagnosis of a personality disorder can be considered insulting to some people. It shouldn't be, but in reality that does happen. This might motivate a clinician to withhold the diagnosis. Item number 6 is the claim by Dr. Hughes that Johnny Depp's behavior was etiological to Amber's PTSD. Dr. Hughes acknowledged that Amber had a challenging childhood that involved trauma. For example, she mentioned that Amber's father had difficulty regulating his intake of alcohol. This leads us to believe that the etiology of Amber's PTSD symptoms is either from her childhood or from her relationship with Johnny Depp. So there is no other possible source of PTSD symptoms. Even if this is true, and there's no way to know if it is, there is still a problem with this claim. Dr. Hughes suggested that the content of the descriptions from Amber Heard led her to believe that Amber's relationship with Johnny Depp was the source of the PTSD symptoms and not Amber's relationship with her parents. At the same time, Dr. Hughes specifically recognized that some of Amber's struggles with her parents could have contributed to Amber believing that she could save Johnny Depp. She could fix him. This is where we run into a logical problem. If the dynamic that formed when Amber was young facilitated her behavior when she was married, then the 2 sources of trauma are connected. This conflicts with the idea that the etiology of the PTSD symptoms can be distinguished between Amber's childhood and her marriage. It seems as though the 2 sources are intertwined. In clinical practice, it's highly unusual to blame PTSD symptoms on one trauma and not another. In addition, most psychotherapists would be very reluctant to dismiss the impact of traumatic experiences a person had as a child in favor of those that occurred as an adult. Item number 7, Dr. Hughes indicated the allegation that Amber's claims represented a hoax reactivated Amber's PTSD. How would Dr. Hughes know this? So Amber had all these terrible experiences from her childhood, all this violence in her relationship with Johnny Depp, but it's the hoax claim that pushes her over the edge. That's what did it. That's what brought all the PTSD symptoms to the forefront. This is impossible to believe. I could picture some type of group therapy where there are people sitting in a circle. One woman talks about how she was robbed. One man talks about how he was injured in combat. Another man was almost killed in a car accident. And then you have a woman who says, "The attorney for my ex-husband said my allegations were a hoax." The members in the group are shocked. We've never heard of trauma that serious. How do you even get up and function every day with the cruel statements of that attorney on your mind? This type of statement by Dr. Hughes really minimizes the seriousness of PTSD symptoms. If this claim were true, wouldn't Amber's PTSD symptoms also be reactivated by this trial? Why isn't she hiding under the desk from the constant barrage of statements by these attorneys. Now moving to my final thoughts. During this trial, two different well-qualified psychotherapists have come up with diametrically opposed conclusions about the same person. Amazingly, each clinician found exactly what the party who hired them would want them to find. What an incredible coincidence. Ultimately, these clinicians effectively cancel each other out. I think they were each biased toward the people who hired them, which simply demonstrates mental health professionals are not exempt from bias. In the end, after all these complicated tests are administered by well-trained clinicians, the bottom line is that Johnny Depp says one thing and Amber Heard says another. The other evidence in this case, like witness testimony, the audio recordings, and text messages, will have to be used to determine who was wrong and who was more wrong. Johnny and Amber treat each other terribly, and people are trying to figure out who was less terrible. One thing this trial has established with certainty, regardless of who wins or loses, is that neither party has demonstrated a reason to be proud of their behavior. Those are my thoughts on the testimony of Dr. Johnny Hughes. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comments section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.